a really quirky thing that me and my mom did actually. I don't think anyone else did this, but basically after the interview, I told my mom, it went horrible. Everyone spoke over me. I barely spoke. So what we did was we compiled a whole PDF and like pic collage of all my extracurriculars, all my achievements of everything that I'd done. We put pictures, we put descriptions, and we sent this to the admissions office after the interview, just to like a final shot, because I really wanted to go to CLC. Yeah. I had to get in, so I was just trying all the methods.
Welcome back to LifeLibrary, where we delve into the inspiring stories of individuals who have pursued their passions and achieved remarkable success. Today, we are joined by Priyanan Atikanvadi, also known as Prim. Having studied at Shrewsbury International School, Prim moved to Cheltenham Ladies College in Year 9, and today she's here to share about her path and how she got into the top all-girls boarding school. Thanks for having with us today.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, what sparked your interest when deciding to apply to high school in the UK?
So initially, it was actually an idea that was proposed to me by my mom, but it was very much like I agreed and I wanted to go as well. It wasn't like I just got shipped off. But in Shrewsbury, it was kind of a thing for a lot of people to move to a British boarding school in Year 9. So my mom proposed the idea to me. She was like, do you want to go to boarding school? And I was like, yes. I mean, it seemed fun to me because growing up, I had also gone to a lot of boarding camps and summer camps. I remember when I was either like 8 or 10, I went to this like coding camp at Stanford, absolutely loved it. And then when I was in Year 6, I went to another sleepaway camp called Explo in Boston, and I had the best time of my life. And my parents saw that as well, and they recognized how much I enjoyed boarding school and like just a boarding environment, so they knew that I would like it. But also another thing for me was that I'd been at Shrewsbury for so long. I'd been there since EUI 1, so I was there for almost 10 years, and I was really confined to my comfort zone, and something I really wanted was some sort of adventure. I wanted to step outside of my comfort zone, which was why I wanted to go to CLC. I just wanted to change as well, yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I think to you, that journey was very personal because obviously you've gone to many summer camps, which other students just maybe have decided to apply to the UK because they saw that that's a good path in preparation for university as well. But for you, you focused on the little bits of you enjoyed going to summer camps, you liked the idea of boarding, and then hence why you moved schools. And when compiling your high school list, how did you do your research and decide that, okay, maybe it's all girls over co-ed, even though Shrewsbury was co-ed school?
So when I was trying to decide what schools to apply to, it was a mix of this website called bestschools.uk, something like that. And it was a website that ranked the best schools in the UK. And I also spoke to a lot of family friends or other parents who had sent their kids to boarding school, or just asked the students themselves what they thought about certain schools, about their experiences. So that's how I made up my list. And based off the ranking, the chart from the bestschools.uk website, I just picked all the top all-girls boarding schools, and also just asking people around. And I remember my list at the time comprised of Wickham Abbey, Down House, Cheltenham Ladies College, Benetton, and Badminton. But in the end, I only ended up doing 2 assessments. I did CLC and Benetton, and after I got into CLC, I didn't do any other assessments because CLC was my top choice. So when I got in, I was just like, yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
That's actually a really good point in terms of you finding different approaches to researching about the different schools from word of mouth, and also the ranking list that supposedly is or isn't correct, up to your own interpretation. But I'd also like to ask, why all girls? You've come from a co-ed school for your whole life, and why did you end up at all girls school?
So initially, this was actually something it was more about my parents forcing me to go to an all-girls school. They didn't let me apply to any co-ed schools at the time because their way of thinking was that co-ed boarding schools are too dangerous, and they also thought that I was going to get distracted by boys and that I wouldn't focus on my academics. So that was why they only let me apply to all-girls schools. But in hindsight, having experienced 4 years of an all-girls school, I think going to an all-girls boarding school has been like the best decision of my life. Very short life, but still one of the good decisions I've made, definitely, because I feel like being in an all-girls environment, it really excludes you from all the gender stereotypes you could have in a co-ed school that might hinder your ambitions. I think being at CLC has definitely empowered me to have boundless ambitions and to believe in myself more. Because if you're in a co-ed school, you might face stereotypes such as, oh, boys do engineering, boys do STEM subjects, girls are more into the arts. Whereas in CLC, no one will doubt your abilities. If you are a girl wanting to do engineering, if you're a girl wanting to be a chemist, no one doubts that. But also no one looks down on you if you want to pursue classics or history. Like, I think in CLC, people really respect all avenues that people choose to pursue. So that's something that I really like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of the boarding schools in UK, one of the one single sex schools have become an increasing trend. I wouldn't say it's definitely a trend, but I would say it's more likely that parents would want them to send their child there, just because most of those schools really focus on academics and also your life there and like pursuing each individual's ambitions and focusing on it, not getting sidetracked like you said as well. And you've mentioned the 5 schools that you applied to. I mean, you were looking at, and then you narrowed down to 2, which was Benedict and CLC. But between these 2, why did it end up being CLC?
Well, the thing that stood out to see about CLC to me and my family was mainly the diversity of the student body. Upon having a school tour, we really saw that the people there were from all sorts of places. Yeah. Like the school was very diverse compared to Shrewsbury, my old school, because Shrewsbury is largely comprised of mainly Thai students. There are very few international students, despite it being an international school. But I knew that I wanted that international experience that CLC had. And also comparing CLC to other British boarding schools, namely Stowe or Marlborough, for example, or like Teddy's, they are very much like white schools. There's just nothing wrong with that. If you want that kind of experience, you want like the British like boarding school experience, sure, great for you, go for that. But personally, I really wanted like the diverse experience to learn from people from all sorts of places, learn about diverse cultures and perspectives. So that's
Yeah, definitely. I also think that from both of us having lived there for 4 years, we've definitely experienced diverse thoughts, like approaches, types of learnings, and we've definitely seen a wide range of people, which has helped us develop as a person as well. And backtracking to when you were preparing for CLC, one of the most top all-girls boarding school back at that time, and still currently in a very high position ranked by your website, your best schools for UK. How did you prepare for the application process? What components were there, and how did you prepare?
So for CLC specifically, CLC had their own tests that they made. A lot of British boarding schools require the ISEB, but CLC doesn't. So if you are looking to apply just to CLC, you don't need the ISEB because CLC makes their own test. And this assessment comprises of a English section and a math section. And for context, we both applied and we did this at school, so I didn't have to fly over to do this test. We were able to sit at Shrewsbury. So this test comprised of math and English. And to prepare for the maths, they gave us context that it was going to be around the same level of maths that we've done, if not a little bit harder.
Bear in mind that this we applied 2 years before, 2 to 3 years before. So we were applying for the 13 plus entry, which was a year 9. So we did the test around year 6 to year 7.
Yeah. So what I did was just I listened in class in year 6 and I went away and studied some concepts in year 7 that I thought were going to come up, and that was definitely really helpful because I didn't find the maths too tricky, but I also think coming from Asia, coming from Thailand, the Asian maths is just more advanced than British maths, so I didn't find the maths to be anything special. I thought it was fine. But for the English, I knew I had to prepare more. Not being a native speaker, English is my second language. I knew I was going to have to do more preparation to be on the same level as the British kids. So what CLC gave us was they gave us a reading list. And I remember I read every single book on that list.
There was like 60.
Yeah, not 60, 16. Like 16 books. Like,
okay.
Actually, it wasn't 60 books. There were quite a lot of books.
Yeah, I remember them was quite a long list.
I think reading those books were actually really helpful because they also had fun books in that list. They didn't just give us really boring stuff, like really like non-fiction boring stuff. It was fun books that as a year 6 student, I think I would have enjoyed, and I did. And I think reading those books definitely helped me improve my English and helped me improve my creative writing skills. Yeah, that was really helpful.
Yeah, so I think specifically for CLC, this advice would be helpful in terms of preparing for their common entrance math and also English. However, like Prim said, for other boarding schools, there's a whole completely different system and this whole other test called ISET for some schools. And nowadays, as more students are wanting to go study abroad, some admissions process might change. So make sure to keep up to date with that if you're planning to apply your kids to the UK boarding schools. Mm-hmm. And okay, so the common entrance exam is finished. You've handed in your grades. The next thing we know is that we had an interview. For me personally, I had a one-on-one interview, but how was your interview process and experience, and how did you prepare for it?
My interview experience was actually different. I went to the assessment day and we had our interview there, but I had a group interview, not an individual interview. And I would say I did pretty bad in the interview because I used to be a really shy kid. I was very introverted, and when I was placed in an environment like that, I just couldn't. I was getting interrupted. People were speaking ahead of me. I think I only spoke like once, so I didn't do very well. But clearly my grades and test scores were probably great because they still took me in. And for context, I had an unconditional offer because you can either get a conditional offer where you'll have to do a few more tests to make sure that you're smart enough, and an unconditional offer, which is what I got. Like, you're basically just straight through. But the way I prepared for the interview actually was I did interview coaching. I had interview lessons.
Oh.
And I think this is actually very helpful because as a young child, a year 6 kid, if someone asks you what are your hobbies, you're probably just gonna say I love gaming, or like I love watching YouTube, which is like that's like authentic. But these schools, they want to hear you say like, oh, I love playing the piano every single day, I love playing tennis, which is like true. I did as well, and I was saying those things, but they don't want to hear that you love gaming. They're looking for definitely. A specific thing. So interview training is important for a child to learn how to speak professionally.
That's a good way in actually preparing for interviews. I think a lot of people tend to underestimate the power, the importantness of the interview component when applying to all different levels, ranging from prep school, high school to university. I think most people like to focus on extracurriculars and academics, but now that you mentioned that the interview might have played quite a significant role in saying that how your personality is, and it can also delve into questions which you don't really get from just reading a piece of paper or just doing one exam. Mm-hmm. So despite having prepared that, you got faced and challenged with a group interview, and you being an introvert did not help that and ended up in you getting spoken over in the group and stuff. But how did you think the rest of your application made up for this?
I think the good thing about CLC though, it being a good school, they recognize that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. Being an introvert doesn't strip you of any intelligence. It doesn't make you less smart than anyone at all. And CLC being a very good institution, they definitely saw through that and saw my potential. I'm obviously not an introvert now. I've been talking so much. I've become a completely different person. But at the time, I think it was good that the school recognized that there was nothing wrong with being more quiet, and that as a person at the time, I had better qualities. But I was proud to ask, how does she think my application made up for that? A really quirky thing that me and my mom did actually, I don't think anyone else did this, but basically after the interview, I told my mom, it went horrible. Everyone spoke over me. I barely spoke. So what we did was we compiled a whole PDF and pic collage of all my extracurriculars, all my achievements of everything that I'd done. We put pictures, we put descriptions, and we sent this to the admissions office after the interview, just to a final shot, because I really wanted to go to CLC. I had to get in, so I was just trying all the methods. And in this PDF, just for context, just I think for people to know the activities I did as well, which I think made me a very well-rounded applicant that took me in. I remember I was in the A team for football, basketball, volleyball, tennis. I was in track and field, gymnastics.
Wow, so basically all the sports that Shrewsbury nearly provided for us, actually.
Almost every single sport, basically. And we also put pictures from competitions. I went to Fabicia for all these respective sports, and BISAC and CSAC for some of them, and BISP soccer sevens, just all these sorts of competitions. My mom loved taking pictures, so she had all the pictures ready. She put them all in, put the collages, labeled everything. So that was for sports, I think that was really helpful to show that I wasn't a super quiet kid. I was really a go-getter. I was doing stuff as well. And as for music, I was I played the piano. I wasn't too good. I remember I was like grade 4. I wasn't anything special, but it still showed that I tried. I was grade 4 piano, and I played the ukulele and the guitar recreationally. So I also put pictures of that. And I was also involved in the choir, and I went to Fabricia Music 2 years in a row. And as for my academic side, I was also a 2-time consecutive winner of the junior science fair at Shrewsbury.
Science fair.
Yeah, science fair. Everyone knows. Like, I think they were like, "Oh, Prim's up there again." Like, but yeah, that was important because it really showed the 3 dimensions that I was strong in, and it showed that I was a strong applicant. And I think they definitely saw that as very unique, and they definitely saw that I really wanted to go to CLC because I don't think many people do this.
No,
So,
I
yeah.
definitely think that really shocked me or surprised because I don't think this is an approach that CLC have ever gotten before you. And especially it really shows from just listening and hearing your experience, the determination that this girl wants to go to this high school. Like, she just wants to be there. She's putting an extra mile in. It's not part of the requirements, but she found her faults. She didn't do the interview as well, talked to her mom, and team worked out the result by just sending in this PDF and finally getting an unconditional offer. So this might be an approach that the upcoming CLC student who's applying might take it or not by Prim's advice. And I think it's a very unique perspective that also shines through that, okay, a year 6 student is thinking of another approach to really showcase her skills and ability. So finally, Prim, do you have any advice to give for students who are aiming to apply to high school in the UK? As throughout this whole interview, we've been talking specifically more about the CLC's admissions process, but in hindsight, many people might not just apply to all girls, might be co-ed, might be also going to boarding and day. So what advice would you give for students who are aiming to move from Thailand to high school in the UK?
I think a very important part of your application is showing that you actually do want to go.
Yeah.
Because I think it is something that schools take into consideration because they don't just care that you're smart. Honestly, anyone can be smart. Like, they want to see that you actually want to go to this specific school to show that you'll fit in, that you'll have a good time. They don't want to accept you for you to not fit in and have a bad time. I think it's important that you really look at schools that you think that you'll fit in and that you'll have a good time at, and just showing your interest. And schools can definitely see through that, because I know some people who were forced to go to boarding school, like their parents forced them to do it. And of course, if you don't want to go, you're not going to try as hard in these tests. You're not going to go the extra mile to self-study and all that jazz. So just really wanting to go. And this is also a message to parents. If your child doesn't want to go, like, don't ship them off, because personally, I wanted to go. Like,
I think that was
my
key
decision. It was really clear to the school as well that this kid wants to go. She's not getting shipped off. So yeah, I think that's really important, showing interest and genuinely having that interest.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice for both kids and parents. And I think that specifically for parents, building onto what Prim has said, let the student choose where they feel like they belong. I feel like specifically from my experience as well, my parents preferred this school, but then I really bonded with Cheltenham as well. So I was like, right, I think this is a school for me, had my reasons, presented it. So I think a discussion will need to be made if there is a disagreement, but I definitely think that taking consideration of your child's perspective and their assessment days in the process will definitely make them want to go to the school more. So that concludes our interview with Prim to applying to top high schools in the UK. Thank you for sharing detailed insights and experiences on preparing for high school applications in the UK, and I'm sure that this will help many students and parents. Thank you, Prim.
Thank you.